Why don't you wait outside?
Kimiko lets out a no as the finale ends after an entire season of trying to speak, and that was probably one of the most severe character developments. But then the series is riddled with crazy, shocking scenes, with one popping up every now and then. The last season delivered some significant moments as we saw both Homelander and Butcher let out their rage. With some crazy comebacks and filthy details on some soups, let's look at all the most shocking scenes in the 4th season of The Boys. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Shapeshifting Soups introduction. Various soups have appeared in the show by now, and each time we've been completely blown away by the variety of powers they possess. All the super strength is something familiar to most of the soups. The unique abilities are what sets them apart. After all, one of the most exciting things about watching this series and the universe of stories is a chance to witness superhuman capabilities. The latest season of The Boys had reached a very dark and severe situation as the boys tried to prevent the assassination of President-elect Robert Singer, who is against the soups. While the boys did their best work at investigating the attempt to stop it, the soups were always a step ahead of them, thanks to the mind of Sister Sage. As they went to investigate one of the people Sage was handing her plans over to, they found out that the individual set to perform the assassination was a soup with the power of shapeshifting. We've seen various shapeshifters in the superhero world and know how they can be used as the perfect weapon, something we learned from X-Men's Mystique. The fact that this being was sly was proved by the first time the boys came across her when she was disguised as a woman in captivity, only to fool them and escape. She then changed her disguise while on the chase, ripping the layer of skin off her and becoming someone who could easily get lost in a crowd. But things got a lot darker when she managed to get a hold of Annie January, intercept the boys, and work with them as Robert Singer's security detail. Huey was so convinced that he ended up proposing to her, something that the honest Annie didn't like. But thanks to Huey's detective skills, he figured out that Annie was the shapeshifter and that the boys managed to put her down before she could do anything to Robert Singer. The show's writer made her a lot creepier because apart from taking the disguise of the individuals, she could also retain their memories. She later shares something with Annie. Sometimes, the people she disguises do bad things but act as if that doesn't make much of a difference and go on with their lives. The shapeshifter might be a short addition to the series, but she definitely won't be forgotten in this world of superheroes gone wrong. Homelander and his birthplace incident. While the latest season explored all the individuals in each episode, the 4th episode struck out with a level of gore and detail it showed. After all, it explored Homelander's story as he returned to Project Odessa, the Vought lab, where he was made into the Homelander we know by testing his capabilities and the limits of his powers. Even though it's not talked about a lot, the series does mention from time to time that Homelander had a tragic childhood that clearly explains the madness we get to witness from him. But this episode gives us a taste of what his childhood was like as he returns to the lab with payback on the experiences that he had in this lab. The first of the victims in the lab was Frank, someone who played with Homelander, who was put in a chamber to check his heat resistance capability. Frank used to play basketball with a trash can, and each time he would score some trash on the can, he would increase the temperature inside Homelander's chamber. So Homelander asked Frank to go inside the chamber and burned him to death by putting the heat on. All this happened before the other lab scientists, and they probably knew they would not make it through the day. Next up, we had Marty, someone Homelander had a better bond with, but Marty wasn't being completely innocent as he once caught the young Homelander masturbating and gave him the name Squirt. So, what did Homelander do? He asked Marty to masturbate in front of everyone, and when Marty failed to do so, he shot his laser vision right through Marty's genitals as he fell and started moaning with pain. And then Homelander went and crushed his head to put him out of his misery. Finally, Barbara, one of the project's lead scientists, arrived, and she talked to Homelander, letting him know how easy it was to keep him held there psychologically as he failed to understand that he could have escaped any time he wanted. Homelander butchered every one of the scientists in the lab and then closed Barbara inside the room that was once his prison. Yes, it was a walk down memory lane gone entirely wrong.
Put your hands together for Firecracker and Sister Sage!
Lobotomy of Sister Sage. Sister Sage appeared as one of the significant characters who would be a part of the newly formed Seven, with the surviving members of the original and some new changes. Sage was a genius, and she could use it to do anything, and this made her one of the essential parts of Homelander's plans to eliminate the political opposition that the Soups faced. She would be the one who would suggest Firecracker be made part of the Seven, and that would be one of the best moves that the Seven had made. But it came as a major twist when we saw that she had an interest in Deep, something that does make sense. Even though the comic books show us a completely different rendition of the aquatic superhero, over the years Deep has been the dumbest member of the Seven and someone who would follow Homelander's words to the grave. Now Sister Sage arrives and she makes out with the Deep, which adds to his ego and makes him do things he won't be proud of. But during their next interaction, we would find that she asks him to perform a lobotomy on her, as it allows her to be dumbed down enough to enjoy the simple things. Considering her brain is the only healing part of her body, Sage harms her brain so that she can become more simple, and that does explain her interest in Deep, someone who would do anything to get the tiniest bit of respect from the better members of the Seven. Also, we would later find that she was doing the same thing with the new Black Noir too.
Cool! Cool! Oh my god!
Mutton Mayhem, genetically modified sheep attack. All these events are enough to be shocking for the series, but wait until you hear about the beat-up farm animals we witnessed in the 5th episode. As the boys take Stan Edgar's help to investigate Victoria's secret plans, they come across a lab that has been destroyed with bodies and blood everywhere. Newman joins them as her partner works in the lab, but the twist is entirely different. As they go through the farmhouse, they find an array of animals on the farm who have somehow managed to have the compound V and turned into killer super versions of themselves. A cute little bunny turned out to be an absolute monster when a tentacle monster busted out from its chest, which would also hint at something we'd get to see later in the series. Other animals included a devil sheep, a sheep that flew around and killed people, and some super chickens that could fly through people quickly. They would also come across a monster bull that headed straight to kill them, and it became clear soon enough that these animals were the reason the scientists in the lab were dead. Luckily, the boys had a plan, and they managed to poison these crazy animals with a virus that was made to kill them. Finally, we saw them explode and die before they could destroy the other humans. This episode could have been a complete horror film in itself, and we would have watched the innocent animals turn into soups and kill everything they saw.
Daphne!
Hugh Sr. gets soup power. Talking about innocent farm animals getting compound V and turning into monstrous creatures, there are some other significant deaths because of compound V. Fans of the show might remember that casting Simon Pegg as Huey's father is a massive reference to the fact that Simon Pegg inspired the character of Huey from the comic books. Over the years, the actor made several appearances in the show as Hugh Sr., but things turned dark this season when he fell sick. Even though his being hospitalized managed to unite Huey with his mother, who had been asked for based on Hugh Sr.'s demands, Hugh turned it into a desperate attempt to save his father. He decided to inject his father with compound V, but gave up in the end, only to discover that his mother had injected compound V into Hugh. Even though everything seemed normal in the beginning, later Hugh would turn into a soup with super strength and the ability to go through people and walls. He would go on a rampage and accidentally kill a lot of people until Huey would manage to bring him under control and euthanize him. This episode would serve as an essential lesson to the adverse effects of compound V and its impact on people psychologically and, of course, biologically. The preeminent example of someone who had been affected by compound V was Butcher himself, and it was he who probably managed to prevent Huey from going through with injecting it into his father. Hugh's death came entirely out of nowhere. The crazy powers, added to the side effects of anger and dementia, proved how dangerous the drug was.
Wait here.
Zoe Newman versus Kimiko. We knew that Newman was treating her daughter, Zoe, with compound V, but never really got to see the effect that the drug had until we saw Zoe open her mouth to reveal the tentacled mouths that appeared, and she went on to kill people who were helping out the boy. While Frenchie and Kimiko were inside the washroom, the two other men were brutally killed by her, and then she went on to rip Kimiko's arm off. If this isn't setting up some young Seven rendition with Ryan also being a part of it, then it's not deserving of the shocking revelation. While Frenchie managed manages to make it through. They're forced to jump out of the building through a window. Starlight flies up to catch hold of them, but Kimiko's growing hand fails to grab her, and she falls straight on the pavement in front of MM. Frenchie manages to catch Starlight and land safely. Later, when Kimiko gains consciousness, her face is an absolute mess, and she slowly starts recovering into her original face with the healing factor at work. The episode also shows Ryan and Zoe's interaction, and it would be interesting to see if they ever team up in the near future. Young Avengers parody? Here we go.
There's the big man. The myth, the legend, the symbol.
Ted Knight's cave takes him to Dead End. Tech Knight has been an exciting character, and fans have waited for him to appear for a while now. We have almost every character in Marvel and DC being made fun of. Tech Knight is the closest thing to Batman there could be, except that he's the worst possible rendition of a Batman parody we could have expected. His detective skills put him as a threat, but then the addiction to holes prevents him from getting the respect Tech Knight could have got. Fans were very excited when it was announced that he was finally going to make an appearance in The Boys after having his time in the spin-off series Gen V. The character manages to be creepy right away by inviting Webweaver, who is Huey disguised as the Spider-Man knockoff, into his tech cave for some tests before he could make him his sidekick. The tests include some crazy sexual exploits, including sitting bare-ass on a cake and also getting spanked by Ashley, who seems to have a bond with Tech Knight. Even though we were shocked to see the Spider-Man parody finally appearing in the series, things went to a new level inside the tech cave, which was more like Tech's sex dungeon. But soon he managed to discover Huey was disguising himself as Tech Knight and decided to punish him by making a hole in his body. And you know what he would have done with that hole. Luckily, Kimiko and Starlight arrive on the scene and they save him. They use his assets to get more details out of him. When he yelled out the concentration camps part of the plan, his butler decided to take action and started torturing him. Yes, the butler killed him, and Huey managed to live to see another day. Ice skating becomes a musical nightmare. Almost every season, there's one scene where we get to see multiple deaths happening in a sequence, and one such moment from this season was the ice skating musical Massacre. When Homelander got a whiff of Huey's presence at the venue, he let out a laser beam that accidentally ended up killing one of the ice skaters. What followed was absolute chaos, as the performers attempted to run away from the scene, but ended up injuring each other, chopping heads off, slitting throats, and whatnot. Added to this was the tension that if Homelander had gotten hold of Huey, then he would have killed him. But luckily, and somewhat surprisingly, A-Train came to his rescue and got him out of the situation before Homelander could have killed Huey. But the performers died a horrible death, and the scene only confirms that you should be very careful with handling your blades when you're ice skating. Splinter doing the human centipede with himself. The Truth Con was quite a shocking event, as we witnessed the absolute madness when it came to the people and their far-right beliefs in support of Homelander and Vought. When the boys arrived at the location to explore the place while following Sister Sage, it became clear that they wouldn't enjoy anything happening there. However, one of the exciting characters we witness here is Firecracker, someone who can provoke people by saying the most random facts that people are convinced to be true. And her sidekick was Splinter, someone who piqued the boy's interest when he had a brief conversation with Sister Sage. But Frenchie and Kimiko followed Splinter as he left in the middle of Firecracker's speech, only to discover that he was performing cunnilingus with himself and his various clones, forming a human centipede-like chain while looking at a photo of Firecracker. Yes, it might just be another day in The Boys, but it came out of nowhere and will shake you to the core when you witness the scene. He would be killed by Butcher and his iconic crowbar later in the episode, and before dying, he would reveal his unrequited love for Firecracker. Funnily enough, people say this relationship is the complete opposite of what happened between Starlight and Huey, but we're glad we didn't see Huey get into one of these crazy fetishes. A-Train comes to help. While the Seven continued to be savage regarding the term superheroes, many of them have gone through much change as the series progressed. Who can forget the complete transition that Queen Maeve had and eventually managed to leave the Seven? She's probably living the life she dreamt of now. Another superhero that underwent a significant character change is A-Train, as he slowly realizes what he can be instead of what he has become. Ever since the beginning of this season, he's been working alongside the boys and has continued to help them even though his own life life was on the line. One of the most essential moments was when MM had a stroke at Tech Knight's place, and he fainted, so Kimiko asked for A-Train's help, who took him to the hospital right away. The scene where he drops him off at the hospital and a little kid looks at him with awe has to be a clear indication of the impact that he's had on both himself and others with his good deeds. It's hard to believe that Huey asked for his help, even though A-Train is responsible for shaking Huey's world to the core when he accidentally killed his girlfriend. At times, the change felt so big that fans started to think that A-Train might get killed by the end of the series, as the Seven was getting close to discovering that he was the one who revealed the confidential information to the boys. Luckily, he managed to get away from it all after performing his final act of saving Butcher and the boys when the Deep and Black Noir came to attack them at their office. There's a clear chance that he will return in the next season and might be amongst the key players to go against Homelander and his political aspirations.
What are you doing?
Firecracker gave Homelander the best gift. Firecracker might sound like one of those far-right people who believe in the craziest things and have wilder stories to tell. Her powers aren't beneficial, and that doesn't hinder her ability to move people. She can bring people together and cause a riot without a single issue. And while Sister Sage might be a genius, Firecracker knows her way around things. When Firecracker was busy bad-mouthing Starlight during their campaign, Frenchie was in her van to pull something against her, only to find the metoclopramide drug inside her purse. Even though it might have come up as a random detail, we would later witness Firecracker give Homelander the best gift when she surprises him with breast milk. The drug that Frenchie discovered helps spur lactation, and it was her plan all along, even though we might have been thinking that she was going to do sexual favors for Homelander when she said she would do anything for him. The scene where she pulls her breast out and some of the milk squirts into Homelander's face comes off as an absolute shock to the fans. Even Homelander was shocked by one of those crazy expressions that Anthony Starr pulls off whenever he shows the crazy Homelander moments. However, with some side effects already visible at the end of the season, it's clear that she will suffer from this massive move she tried to pull to gain Homelander's affection.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Mallory's death by someone you won't believe. Mallory is a pretty complicated character in the series, and she often seems like the guardian that Butcher can trust with whatever happens. Let's not even go into the crazy relationship the two have in the comic books, but here in the series, we know that she will look out for him. She was even close to Ryan as she looked after him when Butcher handed him over to her for looking after when Homelander was looking for him. Finally, Homelander would take Ryan away, and apart from the wild world of crazy soups, Mallory would probably be the only person he could call family. But the latest season saw this relationship turn sour. Mallory revealed her true intentions for Ryan when he came to see Butcher at the underground base. Initially, she takes things slowly and allows them to get comfortable, but with the news that they might be in danger, she grows desperate and reveals her plan to Ryan. Butcher tried to stop her, considering Ryan was just a child and needed his time to process the information being dropped on him. She revealed that he was their final weapon against Homelander, but he was not ready to listen. Finally, she started going through with her plan to lock all of them down in the base so that Ryan could be contained. But Ryan gave her a push, and she hit the wall and got knocked down right away. So that's 3 victims at the hands of Ryan so far. No wonder Butcher decided to take Kessler's side and kill the suit. Butcher's hallucination and his new power. One of the primary focuses of this season was Butcher's sickness and the fact that he was dying due to the tumor that was growing inside him. But now and then, we would see weird things happen to Butcher that hint that he might not just die so fast. He was going through a lot, and that became clear when his wife appeared to him as a hallucination, and she would act as a reminder that Butcher had to look out for their son. After MM had been appointed as the leader of the boys, Butcher would come across an old friend named Kessler, and he would start working on a secret plan with him to kill the Soups. Considering the boys had already rejected him and his methods, Butcher decided to give in to Kessler's plans, and he would prepare his work to go against the Soups. But often, he would realize that his plans were too brutal, including when Butcher had made the spiked cookies for Ryan, but after talking to Ryan, he threw them away. One of the craziest moments with Butcher was when he came to save Frenchie, whom Ezekiel had caught inside Firecracker's van. Butcher managed to break one of his hands, but Ezekiel started choking him with his other hand, and Butcher blacked out. But when he woke up, he saw that Ezekiel was torn to shreds, and there was no answer to what had happened to him. Even the boys boys were confused about what had happened to Ezekiel because there was no clear answer. Later, when interrogating Samir Shah, he realizes that just like his wife, Kessler was also a hallucination that he was having. But this hallucination was more like the devil because it was asking him to go utterly ruthless against the Soups, even if it asked for killing Ryan in the process. In the end, Kessler's hallucination reveals that he was the one who unleashed the power that killed Ezekiel, and Butcher tried to use it himself but failed. Ultimately, when Mallory is killed, Butcher leaves his conscience, takes Kessler's path, gains complete control, and gives us one of the most shocking events in the series. Victoria Newman exposed to people. In a single episode, we got to witness a wide variety of crazy things happening together, and the series just took off in a whole new direction. Ever since the boys discovered that Newman is a Soup herself, they've been holding it against her and using it to threaten her political career. However, Homelander has, in turn, been saying that nothing matters, even if Newman's powers are revealed to the world, and it seems that if Homelander wants something, he just goes for it. During an appearance on Firecracker's live show, Homelander and Newman were going to talk about their political approach coming together, but Homelander had something else in mind. Homelander glanced at her and decided to tell the world that she was a superhero. Newman desperately attempted to cover it up by saying that it was a generous thing to say, as if to show that Homelander was praising her work, but Homelander took a much more direct approach and shot his laser vision at her, which she quickly deflected. Yes, the people found out that Newman was a superhero right when Homelander wanted it, and all the efforts that Newman had made to prevent it coming out in front of people were reduced to nothing. Newman would have a massive breakdown, but it would be far from her fate at the end of the episode. Victoria Newman's death. After discovering Robert Singer's assassination failed, Newman contacted Homelander, who told her she was their puppet and would do what they asked. Newman realized that she was putting herself and her daughter in a difficult spot, so she asked for Huey's help as a deal, and she said she would help them out in her plans to stop Homelander's plans. But her fate was not written out this way, as the moment she arrived at the makeshift lab of the boys to make the deal, Butcher would return, and this time around, he knew what he was going to do. Butcher used his powers to release the tentacles from his chest, just like the rabbit we had seen earlier on the farm, and he ripped Newman into two halves and killed her. You thought A-Train would die, but Eric Kripke hated Newman, as he finished her entire arc in a single episode. But since Zoe witnessed all of this and was pushed into the Red River Institute, we can expect her to take revenge for what happened to her mother. Unexpected cameo. Cindy is back. For those wondering what happened to the wide variety of characters who had appeared at random times in the various moments in the series, with some of the craziest powers, it seems that they all joined Homelander's Soup Army. At the end of the series, when the boys part ways with plans of escaping, each comes across a character we've seen before. MM faces Love Sausage, someone he had met at the Sage Grove Center, and we're sure he didn't plan to meet again. Similarly, Kate and Sam intervene in Frenchie and Kimiko's getaway plan. Still, it wasn't surprising, considering the duo had already appeared earlier and participated in killing Cameron Coleman. But the genuinely shocking appearance was the character that Huey and Annie faced while driving away. Annie finally gets back her powers, but they're suddenly stopped by a boat that is dropped before them. As they're forced out of the car, they face Cindy, the powerful Magneto-like character who is getting away from Sage Grove Center in the last scene. Right when we think that Annie will face off against her, she and Huey share a nod, and she flies right off. But this means we will see a face-off between the two in the 5th season. But now that we know Homelander has a fantastic army in his hands, it will be a challenge for the boys, who are already in captivity unless Butcher sorts things out. True power of Black Noir 2 unleashed. There's been a lot of mystery regarding Black Noir 2 since the season began, considering we had seen him killed by Homelander in the previous season. But over time, we realized that someone else was under the disguise of Black Noir, who later turned out to be a professional actor. He complained a lot about being Black Noir and often did things against the character of the Black Noir we were used to, since there would hardly be any mystery with the man hanging out without his mask inside a Vought Tower. When he and the Deep were sent to the Boys HQ, it almost felt like the focus was intimidation, but it turns out this Black Noir is also a Soup and he can fly. But while he surprises us with his flight, Butcher is shocked by another detail about him in the middle of the fight, as he ends up falling asleep due to being narcoleptic. Yeah, they didn't hire anyone to stand in for Black Noir, but a Soup. But this Soup is dumb enough to become best friends with the Deep. Ashley getting Compound V. In the final episode, as Homelander orders everyone in the Vought Tower who knows them to be killed, we see Ashley overhearing the order. She had a chance of getting away when the A-Train had made her the offer, but now, since it was too late, she decided to take a whole new route when she went to Homelander and injected the Compound V from his secret stash. After injecting it, we see the size of her head enlarging as her wig falls off, revealing her scalp. Meanwhile, the new Black Noir kills another Ashley, Ashley's assistant. The moment feels somewhat similar to what happened to Samuel Stearns in The Incredible Hulk, where some of Hulk's blood fell on the open wound on his head. We don't get to see what happens to Ashley, but she might have a significant role in the next season as someone with some sort of toxic Avenger persona. The way that the Seven treated her in these last few days, it won't be surprising if she goes against them and takes sides with the boy.
Curse the poor girl.
No! Sage getting shot and becoming a child. Things get interesting at Tech Knight's party when we see Sister Sage facing MM and Kimiko intending to make MM angry. Her plan succeeds, and MM shoots her right in the head as she falls off. So yes, she goes brain dead, and as she comes back to her senses, she starts behaving like a child, clearly showing that her brain isn't working at all. But this was when Homelander needed her, and he brought together the senior government officials and discussed his plans. When he approached her, she responded in a state of delirium that she had once eaten an entire bag of candy corn. With Sage out, Homelander proceeds with his plan, but stumbles as he doesn't have it all clear, as Sage did. Thankfully, Newman helps him, and Homelander grieves against Sage because she wasn't there when he needed her. Later, Sage would prove her worth by making her plan work out after all the chaos and bringing Homelander's plan to a complete success. A devastating price. The Deep's choice between friendship and power, thus killing his girlfriend. The Deep had quite an interesting time throughout this season, as he tried to find some words of affirmation from all the people around him. But the only person who valued anything he did was his octopus girlfriend, Ambrosius, who Tilda Swinton voiced. Yeah, Kripke surprised us with that one. With accusations of having sexual relations with the aquatic creatures, Deep managed to hide Ambrosius from the world by keeping her inside the secret aquarium in his wardrobe. She would praise him for his writings and value the Deep's depth, which honestly, there isn't any, unless only aquatic people are getting it. But Deep is wholly stopped when Sage manages to fool him, and they start hooking up. Eventually, Ambrosius finds out about it and confronts him, to which Deep gets angry and breaks her aquarium, locking her inside the wardrobe while she dies without water. Ambrosius warns him that Sage is using him, which he finds out later, and he regrets killing her. The Deep probably had the most hilarious storyline, with Black Noir 2 coming right after him in the series this season. Marvelous verdict. The Boys is now approaching a significant conclusion, with some critical changes and the death of some major characters. But the season still doesn't feel strong, apart from delivering a fair amount of shock value scenes, something that the series has always succeeded in providing. Now that MM actor Laz Alonso is confirming some crazy scenes in the upcoming season, we can be sure there will be significant shock value there. We may have seen Spider-Man and Batman engaging in weird sexual activities in the Boys world, but some tricks remain inside Kripke's sleeves. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.